Welcome to the world of science fiction Neon's Alien. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from Neon's Alien universe. The arena lights were blinding, the crowd was loud, and the girl stood in the center, chained. Her name was Lyra. She was tall and lean with silver skin and glowing violet eyes. Scars marked her arms. Dirt covered her face. A metal collar dug into her neck, and heavy chains held her wrists tight. She wasn't a warrior by choice. She was a prisoner for entertainment. The galactic arena on Drexel 9 was famous across the outer systems. Rich aliens from all over came to watch bloodsport. Humans, beasts, aliens, it didn't matter. If you could bleed, you could fight, and if you lost, you were left in the dirt. Lyra had survived 12 matches, but today, she was weak, tired, hungry. The guards had given her no food, only a broken blade to hold. Across from her, a large four-armed brute growled and beat its chest. Its skin was thick and red. Its teeth were sharp. The crowd cheered its name. Gorax! Gorax! No one cheered for her. She was just the chained girl with fire in her eyes. From the stands, one figure didn't move, a human male. His name was Jackson Reeve. He wore a simple coat and dusty boots. No one knew who he was. No one cared. But his eyes were locked on her. Not the beast. Not the fight. Just the girl. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. A former slave turned fighter, weak, forgotten, doomed. Against the King of Blood, Gorax the Ripper. The crowd roared, but Lyra didn't hear them anymore. She gripped the broken blade in her hand, her breath shaky. This wasn't about winning. It was about surviving one more day. The horn sounded. Gorax charged. Lyra dodged the first blow, barely. The chains around her wrists pulled tight, slowing her down. She swung the blade, scratched his arm. He laughed. One punch hit her side. She fell hard, coughing. The crowd laughed too. Get up, a voice shouted. Let the beast finish her. Yelled another. Jackson Reeve didn't laugh. He stood slowly from his seat in the crowd. People near him turned in confusion. What's he doing? Is that a human? He's gonna get himself killed. Jackson didn't speak. He dropped his coat and leapt over the barrier. The alarms didn't even sound. No one expected it. A human entering the arena? Alone? Lyra blinked in shock as he landed beside her. She was bleeding. Her blade was cracked. She stared at him. Why are you here? She whispered. Jackson glanced at Gorax, who was now confused, staring at him. He looked back at her and said only one thing. Because no one should be chained for others' fun. The guards up above hesitated. The arena master laughed. Let the fool die too. One free kill for Gorax. The horn sounded again. Gorax roared and charged, now aiming for both of them. Jackson grabbed a long pipe from the arena floor. Rusted. Dented but solid. Can you stand? He asked her. Lyra nodded, coughing. Not fast, but yes. He stepped in front of her. No one else is going to hurt you, he said calmly. Not while I'm still breathing. Gorax was almost on. Them. The crowd rose to their feet, and Lyra, through blood and pain, saw something strange. This human wasn't afraid. The moment Jackson Reeve stepped between Lyra and the charging beast, the arena shifted. It was like the air itself paused. No one knew who he was. He wore no armor, carried no weapons. And yet, he stood tall, holding only a rusty pipe in one hand and a girl's safety in the other. The beast, Gorax, didn't pause. With four massive arms and rage in its roar, it came like a living wall of pain. The crowd held its breath. The human will be crushed. He's mad. One hit and he's done. And then, it hit. A fist the size of a crate slammed into Jackson's side. His body flew backward 5 meters and hit the sand hard. The entire arena gasped. Even Lyra covered her mouth in shock. Dust rose. Silence followed. Then, movement. Jackson groaned. His hand gripped the pipe again. He stood, one eye swollen, lip bleeding, but standing. The crowd erupted, half laughed, half stared, and Gorax looked confused. The beast had ended warriors with one punch, but this human, this fragile human, got up. Jackson spat blood and smiled. "That's all you got, big guy?" Lyra, still weak, looked at him like he was insane, but something strange stirred in her chest. Hope. Up in the arena box, the master slammed his fist on the glass. "Who is that human?" "Unknown," replied a trembling assistant. "No record, no ID. Then get guards down there now. Kill him before he ruins the match." But the guards hesitated, because Jackson wasn't running. He wasn't begging. He was fighting. And the crowd had changed. They weren't booing anymore. They were watching. Jackson rushed Gorax with the pipe, sliding under a claw swipe and bashing the beast's knee. The metal cracked loudly. Gorax roared, swinging wildly. Jackson dodged left, rolled, came up behind, and slammed the pipe into the back of its head. The beast stumbled. The arena gasped again. Lyra, still chained, shouted, "Behind you!" Jackson turned just in time to block a wild punch with the pipe, snapping it in half. He flew back again, this time landing beside Lyra. She looked at him, eyes wide. "You're going to die." He looked at her collar and smiled. "Not before I break that chain." From above, one of the guards lifted a weapon, but another grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" he snapped. "Watching," the second guard said. "That human, something's different." Down below, Gorax charged again. Jackson didn't run. He raised the broken half of the pipe like a blade. And just as Gorax leaped, he threw it. Not at the beast, but at the chain holding Lyra to the ground. Crack! The metal snapped. One arm, free. Lyra blinked, stunned. Jackson hit the dirt again, and now Lyra moved. Not away, not to escape, but toward him. She grabbed the other end of the chain still tied to her wrist and pulled. Hard. Snap. Both arms free now. She picked up the dropped blade. It was cracked, but sharp enough. She stepped over Jackson. Faced the monster. Gorax roared. She whispered, "You're not hurting him again." From the stands, no one cheered anymore. They were silent, because they weren't watching a fight. They were watching a shift. The crowd didn't see a slave anymore. They saw two fighters, one human, one alien, standing together. Jackson coughed. Lying on his side, he looked up at her. "You could run." She didn't turn. "I could," she said. "Then why stay?" She gripped the blade. "Because you stayed for me." The arena floor was cracked. Blood stained the sand. Smoke rose from the broken gate, and in the center stood two figures. One was a chained alien girl, now free. The other was a human, bleeding, bruised, unbroken. Gorax, the four-armed beast, roared, louder than thunder. Its chest heaved, its eyes burned. It didn't care about honor. It wanted blood, and it wanted Jackson Reeve dead. Jackson had no pipe now, no armor, no backup. He had only his fists and rage. The crowd leaned forward, some in shock, some in silence, some realizing they weren't watching a prisoner anymore. They were watching a problem no one expected. Lyra stood beside him now, still, holding the cracked blade. Her arms shook. She had spent weeks being tortured, forced to fight, laughed at, beaten. But today, she wasn't alone. Jackson wiped blood from his nose and gave a crooked smile. "Ever kill a four-armed ogre before?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Want to try?" She nodded once. Together. Gorax came at them like a falling wall. Lyra dashed right. Jackson ran left, split the beast's focus. It roared and swung at Jackson. The fist missed, but the second one didn't. Crack. Jackson hit the ground again, rolling through blood and sand, but he got up. Again. Every time he fell, the crowd thought it was over. Every time he stood, the crowd grew quiet. Lyra jumped on Gorax's back, driving the broken blade into its shoulder. The beast howled in rage, spinning violently. She flew off and crashed to the ground. Jackson saw her fall, and that was the last straw. He didn't roar. He didn't scream. He just moved, faster than anyone expected. He leapt onto Gorax's chest, wrapped an arm around its neck, and started punching. Not once, not twice, but again, and again, and again. The beast stumbled. It tried to grab him, but Jackson shifted his weight, locking his legs around the neck like a vice. "You don't hurt her again." Each word came with a blow, and the crowd? They were on their feet now, not cheering, just staring. Lyra pulled herself up. Blood ran down her arm. Her ribs screamed in pain. But when she saw Jackson choking the monster with his bare arms, something changed in her chest. Not fear, not pity, fire. She picked up the blade again and ran. Gorax smashed backward into the arena wall, trying to shake Jackson off, but the human held on, arms locked tight like steel, and then, slice. Lyra's blade cut deep into the back of the beast's leg. The monster buckled. Jackson slipped free, landed on his feet, and punched Gorax across the jaw. One final blow. The arena fell silent, and the beast dropped, face first, unmoving, defeated. Dust floated in the air. The crowd was frozen, and in the middle of it all, a human and an alien girl stood together, both bleeding, both breathing, both victorious. Up in the viewing tower, the arena master whispered, "That wasn't supposed to happen." Back on the floor, Lyra dropped the blade. Jackson looked at her and gave a tired smile. "You okay?" She nodded slowly. "Are you insane?" "Maybe," he said, "but I'd do it again." A slow sound began in the crowd. One clap, then another, then a wave. Applause. Real applause. Not for Gorax, not for blood, but for them, for something the galaxy didn't expect to see. A human, fighting not to win, but to save someone else. Lyra turned to Jackson, voice soft. "You're not like the others." He wiped his forehead. "Neither are you." The beast Gorax lay still. The crowd had gone silent. No drums, no announcer. Only the sound of blood dripping onto sand. In the center of the arena, Jackson Reeves stood beside Lyra, both bruised, both panting, but neither one looked proud. They looked ready. Lyra held her chained wrists out in front of her. The cuffs still glowed red. The collar on her neck blinked with a control chip. Even after the fight, she was still a slave. She looked at Jackson. "I won," she said quietly. He looked down at the chains, then up at the tower where the arena master watched. "No," Jackson replied. "You're still wearing their victory." He walked over to Gorax's broken weapon, its handle half buried in the sand. It was heavy, thick, meant for war beasts. Jackson lifted it with both hands. The crowd stirred. "What's he doing?" "He won. Why isn't he leaving? Is he crazy?" Jackson walked to Lyra and pointed at her wrist. "Hold still," she nodded. Crack. The handle came down hard. Sparks flew. One shackle broke. Lyra gasped. But it wasn't from pain. It was from the sudden feeling of freedom. He lifted the weapon again. Crack! The second shackle shattered. Then he stepped behind her and slammed the collar. Crack! The control chip broke. The blinking light died. And in that moment, every screen in the arena glitched. Up in the control tower, alarms began to blare. He broke the neural collar. "We've lost signal on the girl. Security bots are not responding." The arena master's eyes widened. "He didn't come here to fight," he whispered. "He came here to free her," the crowd murmured. Some stood. Some sat down, confused. One brave spectator shouted, "She's just a slave. What's the point?" Another yelled back, "She earned her freedom." A third screamed, "He just broke arena law." And then the moment shattered. Metal gates slammed open across the arena. Guards, dozens of them, armed with shock rifles, stun spears, and auto drones. Marching fast, no mercy. A voice boomed over the speaker system. The match is over. The human is under arrest. The alien girl will be punished. Jackson turned to Lyra. He didn't look afraid. He looked like a man who'd made peace with what was coming. I told you I didn't come to watch, he said. Lyra's eyes filled with fire again. And I told you. I wouldn't run anymore. The guards closed in. Lyra grabbed a fallen spear. Jackson kept the heavy beast weapon in his hands. They stood back to back, one free alien, one furious human. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't move. They watched history begin. The first line of guards charged. Jackson spun the heavy weapon in a wide arc, knocking 2 soldiers to the ground. Lyra ducked and stabbed low, fast and clean. They moved like they'd trained together their whole lives, but they hadn't. They just believed in the same thing. No one deserves to be chained. Alarms rang louder. Gates slammed shut. Cameras flickered. Outside, fighter ships started warming up their engines, because this wasn't just a prison break anymore. This was a message. Inside the arena, something strange happened. Spectators started leaving their seats. But not running, not screaming. They walked slowly, heads lowered, as if they saw something they weren't supposed to. A slave breaking free. A human starting a war not for glory, but for someone else's freedom. In the tower, the arena master slammed his hands on the console. They'll tear everything apart, his assistant whispered, voice shaking. Good. Jackson and Lyra fought side by side. She wasn't fighting to survive anymore. She was fighting to make sure this never happened to anyone else again. And as they reached the final gate, Lyra looked back at the arena. At the chains. The sand. The place she nearly died in. Then she whispered, I came in here in chains. I'm leaving in fire. A day after the escape from the arena, every screen in the outer rim lit up with one message. Bounty alert wanted. 1 human male. Jackson Reeve wanted. 1 escaped gladiator slave. Subject Lyra, dead or alive. 5 million credits each warning. Highly dangerous. Extremely loyal to each other. Across stations, ports, and smugglers' dens, bounty hunters geared up. Some laughed. A human and a girl. Easy money. But the smart ones, the ones who had heard whispers about the arena, they stayed out of it because there was something different in those whispers. The human didn't run. He fought for her. She didn't escape. She turned and helped him fight back. They didn't flee like criminals. They walked, out like fire and thunder. On the mining moon Vera 3, a bounty team cornered them. 4 men, full armor, heat trackers, stun nets. Jackson didn't hesitate. He led them into the ventilation shafts of the old refinery, and then took them out one by one. No armor, no rifles, just rusted pipes and fists, and a little help from Lyra. When it was done, the last hunter crawled away whispering, it wasn't just him. The girl fights now too. Lyra sat by a campfire that night, wrapping Jackson's wounded arm. You should have run, she said quietly. Jackson didn't flinch. I told you, I don't leave people behind. She looked at him. I was a slave. You were more free than most people I've ever met, he said with a smile. Even in chains. Every day brought more danger. They stole food, hid in caves, rode garbage shuttles from world to world, but through it all, they stayed together. On the jungle moon of Halrix, they found brief peace. Lyra climbed trees and laughed for the first time in months. Jackson fixed an old comm unit, trying to reach anyone from Earth. No reply, but he didn't stop trying. One night they lay beneath the stars. Why do you keep fighting? She asked. Jackson turned his head. Because you gave me a reason. She looked confused. I did? He nodded. I've seen war. I've lost people. I was tired, ready to disappear. Then I saw you, chained, bleeding, and still standing. He looked at the stars. That's the kind of fire you don't walk away from. Elsewhere in the high towers of the Arena Syndicate, cold voices met. He is destabilizing our system. She is a symbol now. That's worse than a weapon. We must send someone stronger. They hired the best Zura Thane, a cybernetic assassin with no soul and no mercy. Her instructions were clear. Bring back the girl alive. Kill the human if you must. But separate them. A week later, Zura tracked them to the ruins of Arc Station Theta. Jackson and Lyra had taken shelter there, cold, hungry, cornered. Zura found them fast. She was faster, stronger, wired for death. Jackson was nearly outmatched. He fought with a wrench. She had a plasma blade. She almost won. Almost. Until Lyra stepped in. No longer afraid. No longer chained. She fought with nothing but broken steel and burning fury. Zura fled. Not from Jackson, but from both of them. Together. After that, the bounty changed. New message across systems: do not engage alone. Subjects fight as a pair. Strike one and the other will strike back harder. In hidden places, children began to draw pictures of them. An alien girl with broken chains, a human with fire in his hands, and in the darkness, a message began to grow. They tried to break her. He wouldn't let them. Now she fights for him too. They were no longer fugitives. They were becoming legends, and legends don't run. They rise. The air was cold and sharp on the frozen moon of Xenor 5. Snow blew sideways in the dark wind. Old mining tunnels cut through the icy hills, long abandoned, now home to outlaws and ghosts. In one of those tunnels, Jackson Reeve lay on the floor, bleeding, pale and shaking. A plasma shot had ripped through his side. The ambush had come fast, 5 bounty hunters cloaked and ready. Jackson fought like fire, but even fire runs out. He had protected Lyra. He had taken the shot meant for her. Now he was still, barely conscious. One hand pressed to the wound. His voice cracked. You need to run. But Lyra didn't move. She was no longer the girl with chains. No longer the frightened slave in an arena. No longer the one who needed saving. Now she was the reason he was still alive. I won't. Run, she said firmly. Jackson gritted his teeth. They're coming back. I know. She stood up, holding his weapon, one of the broken rifles taken from the ambush team. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't. The hunters returned, 3 of them, moving through the ice with blades and shock rifles. They expected fear. They found Lyra. She stepped into the open. No armor, just snow-covered clothes and a cold stare. The lead hunter laughed. Where's your human, girl? Lyra said nothing. They moved closer. We don't need him now. Just bring the girl in alive. She lifted the weapon. I'm not going with you, she said. The hunter shrugged. You going to stop us? She whispered. Yes, then fired. The first blast caught the leader in the chest, sent him flying back into a snow wall. The second ducked, but Lyra was already moving, rolling through the snow, dodging, attacking, fighting like Jackson had taught her. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't trained, but she was angry, and angry can be deadly. She used cover, used the shadows, used the silence Jackson had once used to protect her. Now she used it to protect him. When the last hunter dropped, Lyra stood there shaking. Her hands were numb. Her face was pale, but she didn't fall. She walked back into the tunnel, dropped the gun and knelt beside Jackson. I stopped them. He opened his eyes barely. You stayed? She smiled. You stayed for me first. She pulled him up, slung his arm over her shoulder and dragged him into the dark, away from the snow and blood, step by step, breath by breath. She had no plan, no ship, no help. Just him, and that was enough. By morning, she had found an old comm relay deep inside the tunnel network. Jackson was slipping fast, fever rising, breath slowing. She patched the radio with wires and frozen fingers, static, then a voice. Earth signal. Earth. Repeat, who's calling? She leaned forward, voice raw. This is Lyra. I'm with Jackson Reeve. He's down. I need help. Silence. Then, click. Coordinates received. Help on the way. She fell to her knees beside him. He opened his eyes. Again, barely. You made the call? She smiled through tears. I didn't run. The rescue ship came before noon, black and silent, an Earth stealth dropcraft. They lifted Jackson onto the medbed, patched his wound, started the plasma. Lyra stayed beside him the whole time. When a soldier tried to move her back, the medic whispered, "Don't touch her, she's the reason he's breathing." Inside the ship, Jackson finally slept peacefully, and Lyra, now wrapped in a thermal blanket, watched the stars outside the window. She didn't feel cold. She didn't feel weak. She didn't feel small. She felt like him, because now, the galaxy would whisper something new. She was the one he saved. But when the time came, she saved him back. The ship hovered above Drexel 9, the same planet where it all began, where chains were tightened, where pain was cheered, where a girl was meant to die, and a human refused to let that happen. Now they had returned, but this time, not in chains, not as prisoners, as judgment. Lyra stood beside Jackson in the drop chamber. She wore light armor now, black and silver, fitted by Earth's tech unit. Her eyes glowed bright with calm rage. Jackson checked the straps on his rifle. His side still ached from the wound, but he stood strong. "You sure about this?" he asked. Lyra looked down at the burning city below. "Not just sure," she whispered. "Ready." The arena was full again. New slaves, new blood, new audience. The master sat high in his tower, unaware of what was coming, until the skies cracked open and fire began to fall. Earth's stealth ship fired precise pulses, not to kill, but to shake the bones of the arena. The crowd screamed. Guards ran, and from the dust walked two shadows, one human, one alien, walking straight into the fire they once crawled out of. Alarms rang, gates closed, syndicate soldiers rushed forward. Jackson opened fire, calm, clean, efficient. Lyra moved beside him, blades drawn, her steps silent, her strikes faster than fear. The soldiers never stood a chance. They reached the pit, the center of the arena, the same sand where she once bled, where he once stood alone. Now they stood together, and above them, the arena master's voice came over the speakers. "You have no right. You are fugitives." Lyra looked up. "No," she said. "We are free, and now, so are they." Jackson pulled a small device from his belt, Earth-made. He pressed the button. Across the arena, all slave collars deactivated. At once, chains popped, lights blinked out, shock cuffs melted into dust. The fighters froze, then looked at their wrists, then at Lyra. She raised her hand. "Run if you want, fight if you must. But no one owns you ever again." The ground shook again, not from fire, from rage and footsteps. The once enslaved fighters charged toward the gates, toward freedom, toward revenge. Some climbed the walls, others tore into guards. But Jackson and Lyra, they walked toward the tower. The place where orders were given, where people were bought and sold. They reached the tower steps. The arena master tried to flee. Jackson kicked down the door. "No more games," he said. Lyra walked up to the console and activated the screen that broadcast to the entire galaxy. Her voice rang out across hundreds of systems. "This place is done. The chains are broken. We were just two. But two was enough." She looked at the master. "And now, you get to watch your empire fall." Outside, the arena was already burning. Fighters carried each other. The crowd ran in panic. Ships exploded. Walls crumbled. But through the smoke, one camera caught the moment that mattered. A human and an alien walking side by side, not looking back. On 100 planets, that clip spread like fire. People didn't know their full story. They just called them the Chainbreaker and the Firesaver. Later, on a quiet moon, Lyra and Jackson sat by a river. The war was done. But their bond? Still unspoken? still strong. You could disappear now, Jackson said. Be free. Lyra looked at him. I already am, she replied. Because you stayed, and I stayed, and now we both walk out. Together. In every bar, in every back alley, in every fighter ring across the galaxy, people still whisper, remember the girl they tried to chain? Remember the human who jumped into the fight? They burned the arena down and walked free together.